and then that will probably be better. And I will sadly mute you, I think, but do speak if you want to. So yes, we were just going to do a couple of little toe exercises, sitting however is most comfortable for you. And I'll shuffle back a little bit. And so you just need to sit in a way that's comfortable. And you can lean against something if you prefer, that's fine. You can have your back against a sofa or a wall. You just need to be able to get at your feet one at a time. And the first thing I would like you to do is just this movement where we move our big toe away from the other toes, so out to the side. So this is sort of counteracting the sort of bunion-y things in our feet. I'm just going to let somebody else in. So in one foot, I think it's Helen, yeah. So in one foot, do that movement of your big toe away from the other toes, and you're just doing that with your hand. Hi, Helen. We're starting with a few feet things, sitting down. So good morning. Okay, and if I need to come near, I will. And then the second thing, so we're just going to do these two things on each side. The second thing you're going to do is this one where we take our toes for a walk. So you might have probably done this one before. So we work with pairs of toes. So you take your big toe and your next toe and you move them in opposite directions with your fingers. So it's like your toes are walking. And then you move on to the next pair, okay, which is, so each toe gets worked twice apart from the big and little. So then you go on to the next pair of toes and you move them in the opposite direction. Obviously, don't do it in a way that's going to hurt your feet. And I've picked my foot up so you can see it, but you don't have to. And you can have your foot down on the ground like this if you prefer. This is another way you can do it. And so you've got your pair of toes and you're moving them forwards and back like their legs walking. And then move on to the next pair of toes. And as you're doing this, you can stretch them out a little bit as well, but just make sure that you're not hurting them. And then move on to the final pair of toes if you're not there. And my little toe always tends to get really sort of jammed up against the others. So it's a good opportunity to sort of stretch the little toe out to the side a bit as well. And then we'll do the same thing on the second foot. So the first movement, so Helen, if you missed that one, was just moving the big toe, using your fingers to move your big toe away, out to the side, away from your other toes. And just sort of in and out a bit with the big toe, side to side. And then move on to those sort of walking the toes. So start with your big toe and your second biggest toe, moving the toes forward and back. And then move on to the next pair of toes, giving them a little bit of a wiggle. Yeah, sort of forwards and back. Second biggest toe, middle toe. That's your next pair. Onto the middle toe and the second smallest, walking those toes. And then finally the littlest two toes, forwards and back. And then we're going to come up into standing and we're going to carry on doing some feet things in standing. So first of all, we'll see what it's like after working our feet to come into standing. And, you know, I think probably like all of us, we might be doing more, as we can't do much else at the moment, we might be doing more walking than we normally do. I probably always do quite a lot having a dog. But, and I think that's another reason possibly why our feet might be in worse state than usual. So come into standing, just see for a moment, how does it feel? You can look down at your feet, have your feet a little distance apart, look down at your feet, you can see how they look. And then see how they feel for a moment. And then the first exercise I'd like you to do is just lifting all your toes up and down off the floor and see how that feels. So bring all the toes up, place them down, and just how possible is it to lift the toes up and down? That's it, so a few times. And yeah, does that make you feel wobbly? And I was playing around before everyone joined, just sort of balancing with all my toes up, but you don't need to do that. So yes, so just a couple more times, lift the toes up and down, and then let your toes relax for a moment. So one of the dangers is if we start doing too much with the toes, our feet get tense. So let the toes relax and maybe actually give each foot in turn a little shake out. So we're trying to tread this balance between getting the toes awake and alive, but not getting them too tense. And then you're going to bring one foot forwards a bit on the floor. We're going to do these foot tapping ones. So you can tap your foot up and down. And you can tap your foot in a bit of a sort of semicircle. It might even just be a quarter circle. Sorry it's so dark in my room. It will hopefully brighten up in a minute. Strange things about Zoom. I made the mistake of wearing a black top on Friday and disappeared into the background. Okay, let's try the same thing on the other foot. And so one of the things I find about doing foot exercises is they tend to just lift my mood generally. So I think that when we work on our feet, it's really good for our general well-being as well as the health of our feet. Okay, so when you've tapped the second foot a bit in and out, let's come back to both feet side by side. And again, you might need to get, if your feet are feeling a bit achy, you might need to give them another little shake out, 1 foot at a time. It's obviously a mini balance, isn't it? And then come to settling both feet down. So a little distance between the feet. You want to feel your feet are under your pelvis and a little bit of swaying from side to side. That's it. Let your arms hang, let your shoulders drop. Let your weight rock over one leg and foot, over the other leg and foot. And just see how that feels. Good. We're going to do one more foot exercise. So this time, what you're going to do is, I'm just coming side on so you can see, you're going to lift your heels and you're going to drop your heels back onto the floor. So this was the one that sends a bit of a judder up through your body, and you may or may not like it. So if you can do this sort of quite quick and small, or you can do sort of big, slow ones. Yes, so maybe if you're thinking this is really horrible, find a rhythm that feels a bit less horrible. Okay, and then let's come into a forward bend. So let's see how it feels to go forwards. So you could come down to rest your elbows on your thighs, and then see how it feels. How does your lower back feel? If that all feels well, you could then let your arms release down to the floor. I'm just going to try and see if I can get Zoom to brighten up a little bit. Yes, so release down into a forward bend, either elbows on your thighs or releasing your body down to the ground. Letting your breath come in, letting your breath leave you. And just, yeah, how does it feel? The backs of the legs might feel quite tight, and that's fine. We'll be coming in and out of some forward bends. So whenever you're ready, you can roll back up into standing or walk your hands up the fronts of your thighs if you need to. Now, what I'd like you to do now is, again, look down at your feet, lift all your toes up off the floor, and try first of all just to put your big toes down. So can you put your big toes down on their own? And you could try that a couple of times. Can you lift your big toes and place them down on the floor? So what I was going to say is, don't worry if your toes aren't cooperating, because in a moment we're going to do this in a forward bend and use our fingers. So try and put the big toes down. Then can you put your little toes down? And then can you lift your 3 middle toes up and down? And don't worry if none of this is happening. Just sort of see how that's happening. And then you're going to try the same thing in a forward bend. So you can use your fingers. So you can come back into a forward bend. You can use maybe your thumbs to hold your big toes down, and maybe your index finger to hold your little toes down. And then can you lift just the 3 middle toes? That's it. If you hold the thumb, no, so if you hold the big toe and the little toe down, can you then let the 3 middle toes lift up and down? And just see how that feels. And then let the toes all relax onto the ground. Yes, and then you can roll back up into standing. Good. And have another little shake out of each foot in turn, but also your arms as well. And then we're going to come on into just, I suppose, a simple but little series of standing balances, and just, you know, put all this footwork to the test and see how it feels to balance this morning. So maybe do a little bit of swaying from side to side, so you can choose which foot you'd like to stand on. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our weight onto our chosen foot, and then we're going to slide the other foot back behind us and flip onto the top of the toes. And as you're doing that, try not to lean forwards. Try to just keep centered over your standing leg. And it might be that you straighten your back knee a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to slide that foot back under our pelvis. And from here, you're going to let your knee turn out to the side a little. So we're coming into a mini tree pose. And you could at this point bring your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. That's it, good. And just see how it feels to have a breath or two. And then from here, let your toes come onto the floor because you're going to bend your standing knee slightly. And at this point, you might want to bring your gaze more down to the floor because that usually makes the knee feel more comfortable when it's bent. And then cross your top leg over your standing leg. You can keep your hands in prayer pose. And again, try not to lean forwards at this point. Try to let your shoulders drop down. So you're feeling your shoulders are over your pelvis. Good. Very nice. Well done. Yeah, and do whenever you need to come out and have a little shake out. Good. Okay, so at any point, because we're doing a few balances strung together, it's fine if sort of, you know, you need to come in and out of them. So we're going to try the second foot, which I know for me is the sort of my problematic foot, and it might be the same for you. You must have chosen the easy foot first. So let's see how it feels first of all to slide the foot back behind us that we just stood on and come onto the top of the toes. So this gives us a bit of stretch through the front of the ankle, but we can also then straighten the knee a bit and then try to keep our sort of shoulders soft. Good. That always makes my foot cramp, so I've got to stop straightening my knee. Bring the foot back under your pelvis. Let your knee turn out to the side. You're going to come into a mini tree pose. You could keep some toes on the floor, or you could let the whole of the foot come onto your ankle. That's it. And hands in front of your chest. Good, in prayer pose. Very nice. And have a breath or two here. We're just sort of seeing how does this second foot feel when we're balancing. And then bring your toes back onto the floor. And at this point, sometimes this is when you could look down at your foot just to check how your foot is doing. Bend your knee a little bit and then bring your gaze slightly further forwards on the floor. Cross your top leg over your bottom leg and see how it feels to balance here. And again, we're trying to feel that our shoulders are over our hips. So we're neither leaning forwards or back. Good, and hands can be in prayer pose. Very nice. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Good. Come down, have a little shake out. And we're going to go into one more forward bend. And if you like, from your forward bend, you can go on into a squat if your lower back would appreciate that, which probably Sheila with the gardening, it probably would. So again, you can come down to this forward bend where your elbows are on your thighs. You can release further forwards, release your arms to the ground. See how you feel at this point. How does your lower back feel? How do the backs of your legs feel? And then if it would be nice to stretch out your lower back in a squat, you can start to bend your knees forwards over your feet. Now you can, as you're doing this, coming into your squat, you can look at your feet. You can encourage your big toes to move towards each other, away from the other toes. You can encourage your little toes to come out from their neighbours. Good. And then if you've come into a squat, you're going to make your way back into a forward bend. Have another breath or so in your forward bend and then roll back up into standing. Good. And then this time when we arrive in standing, we're going to come into this sort of swinging twist where we can let the whole of ourselves move. Good. So we're moving on now to perhaps focusing a little bit more on our shoulders and our upper body, but we still keep the feeling of awareness in our feet as well. And I thought that feet will probably be a little theme over the next few weeks as we're dealing with our winter feet. Good, a couple more times, swinging your arms. Letting your feet move, letting your whole body come along with the movement. Okay, good. And then settle down with your feet a little distance apart so you can look at your feet, you can settle your feet on the floor, and then bring your hands to touch in front of you in prayer pose again. Let a breath come in, and as you exhale, you're going to take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears and then swing your arms, crossing them in front of you. You can cross one arm and then the other arm. That's really nice. So you're trying to really just let the arms feel very loose and free. And in a moment, you're going to swing your arms and give yourself a hug with your right arm on top. So I thought if I told you which arm to have on top, then you wouldn't have to think about it. And you're just going to have a couple of breaths here. We'll go on in a moment into eagle arms, but first we're just going to do this hug on both sides. So you can drop your shoulders away from your ears. You can maybe be aware of your breathing here. Feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave you. And then release your arms, just give them a little shake. And bring your hands back into prayer pose. So again, let a breath come in as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears and then swing your arms, crossing them in front of you. That's it. Good. So again, just really loose, free arms, which is fantastic to see. And this time, swing your arms so you're giving yourself a hug with your left arm on top. And just stay here for a couple of breaths. So this is a nice place to sort of feel our breath within us. Also to have a sense of how do the shoulders feel, because we are in a moment going to move on into eagle arms, which is more effort for the shoulders. Good. That's very nice. Okay, so release your arms. Maybe give your legs a little shake out before we move on into eagle arms. And then what I'd like you to do is breathe in, take your arms wide. Exhale, hug yourself with your right arm on top. And then come on into this one, into your eagle arms here, which we all know and love, or whatever variation works for you. So it might be supporting one arm, it might be staying here. And from here, we're going to come on into a forward bend, taking our feet a bit wider apart. So you can step your feet a bit wider, maybe as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. You can sink into your heels and you can fold forwards. And at any point, of course, release your arms, but you don't have to remember which arm's on top because I told you. So that's it. You can fold forwards. I quite like when I've got my feet a bit wider like this to have my knees quite bent. So you can play around with that. Whenever you want to release your arms, you can. Keep feeling really rooted into your heels and letting your head go. If you haven't released your arms, do so. And then sink into your heels, roll up into standing. And when you arrive back in standing, keep your feet this wider distance apart. So we can just do a couple of these little side lengthening movements. So the pelvis moves towards the raised arm side and the bottom arm is heavy and floppy. That's it. And you can either go quite swiftly from side to side, or you can stay and have a breath or two and try and really make the bottom arm sort of heavy and relaxed. Good. Okay. Very nice. And then we'll let those go. We'll step our feet back to being a bit closer together. And we'll come into the other side of eagle arms. So if you let a breath come in, take your arms wide, exhale, give yourself a hug, left arm on top. Okay. Yes. Sarah, if you have your feet a bit, yeah, that's it. I always think for eagle arms, I want to have my feet closer and then take them wider. So from here, go on into your eagle arms on this side. That's it. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears, have a breath or two here, and then stepping your feet wider apart. And make sure when you've stepped your feet wider that your feet are still parallel, they're still pointing forwards. You're still feeling really anchored into your heels and the outer edges of your feet. And then you can start to bend your knees, if you like, a little bit and fold forwards and see how it feels. Remembering you can release your arms whenever you want to. And let the arms just be really floppy. It looks really fantastic, everyone. So whenever you want to release your arms, let the arms go, let the head go. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. Staying with your feet a bit wider apart, so we can again just visit these side lengthening movements. And it might be that you want to do something slightly different on This time, you might want to stay or you might want to move more. But still, this feeling of the pelvis shifting towards the raised arm side and the bottom arm being heavy and floppy. Good. Okay. And just feeling that you balance yourself out with these. So as much as we ever can. Good. And then have a little shake out. And we're going to come now to the back of our mats. And we're going to make our way down through a forward bend dog pose. And I think onto hands and knees. So yes, when you're ready, from the back of your mat, coming down into a forward bend. So we've done a few forward bends. So just take a breath or two, take a moment in your forward bend to see how it feels. Are the back of your legs feeling a bit looser? Is your lower back feeling that it's also releasing? And then from your forward bend, you can start to walk your hands forwards into dog pose and just see how this dog feels. And obviously we're going to do some more dog poses from the ground. So if this doesn't feel fantastic, you don't have to stay here long. Remember, you can bend one knee at a time. You can bend both knees. How do your shoulders feel? Can you rest into your arms more, or maybe widen your hands and let your shoulders undo a little bit more? And then come down onto hands and knees. Now we're going to do some cat movements here. If you feel that your wrists need a little bit of a break, you could come down onto your elbows and your forearms and start your cat movements on your elbows rather than on your hands. So some rounding and dipping. And then if you've given your wrists a little break, you could come back onto hands and knees and carry on with these movements and just see how they feel. So I think it's always interesting to do these. Often we do them a bit earlier on in class, but we've sort of started with forward bends. So see how it feels to round and dip. Also see how it feels to do a bit of your tail wagging movement. And all the time noticing how does this feel around your lower back. I always like to do a bit of sort of tail wagging movement and then come back to a few more cat movements. And what you're going to do in your own time is from a rounded up cat. So when you're rounding your back to the ceiling, you're going to then stay rounded, rock your hips back over your heels, and just maybe have 3 quiet breaths in child pose. So settling on the ground, settling your elbows on the ground, settling your forehead on the ground. Settling with your breathing, letting your breath come in, letting your breath leave you. Feel one more cycle of breath move through you. And then we're going to see how it feels to move into dog pose from the ground. So come on to hands and knees. And if your shoulders were feeling tight in the last dog we did, you could take your hands quite wide apart on your mat, and that can just feel nice anyway. Tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips back, picking your knees up off the floor. Seeing how it feels to come into dog pose number 2. When you arrive in this dog, how do your shoulders feel? Can you rest down through your arms? Can you think about the muscles around the shoulders, just softening a little bit if you can feel supported through the bones of your arms. And bending one knee, bending both knees. Breathing. 2 or 3 cycles of breath, if that feels okay. It looks really nice. Yes, well done. Well done for softening around the shoulders. That's good. Very nice. Whenever you're ready to come down from dog, we'll do some more dog in a moment. First of all, however, we're going to do this one where we step 1 foot forward. So into this sort of kneeling twist where we've got 1 foot stepped forwards that we do quite a lot. And remember, we don't need to keep saying, but remember you've got this sort of sideways distance. So we've stepped 1 foot forwards. We're trying to feel as steady as we can here. So our front heel's under our front knee, our back knee's under our pelvis, and we're turning towards our front leg. We're just trying to feel steady from the waist down. See our hand, that's it, our hand can come onto our front thigh. And we're trying to sort of turn our shoulders towards that front leg, turn the back shoulder back, let the back arm hang or rest on the back of the pelvis. And see if you can have a cycle. So really try and make sure your back arm is relaxed and floppy. So shake it out. That's it. Good, Sarah. Good. See if you can have one more cycle of breath here. So as you breathe in, feeling wide across the front of your chest. And as you exhale, letting your shoulders soften and drop. Good. Okay, very nice. And then you're going to untwist and fold forwards over your front leg, and we'll come on into lunge. So at this point, tucking your back toes under and walking your back knee away. So we've still got our front knee over our front heel, but we've got much more, we've got this stretch now going on through the front of the back leg thigh. But we can just have a few breaths here. So yes, and exactly, have your hands wherever is helpful for you. So to help support you. And just, yeah, see if you can really feel what's going on in your body, and also really use your out breath. Good, your out breath to help you settle into your lunge. Maybe 1 or 2 more cycles of breath here. We'll come out of lunge by easing back, so untucking the back toe, and then this one where we start to bend our back knee, keep our chest close to our thigh, look back behind us. So this sort of easing out of lunge movement. Might be on your fingertips, that's fine. Good. And then we're going to move on to the other side of the twist. You don't need to turn around, I'll just do that so I can see you. So we'll be stepping the other foot forwards. So settling down here with our knee over our heel and our back knee under our pelvis. So we want to feel as steady as possible here. And this feeling that we're not moving below the waist, it's quite hard in this position to move below the waist, which is why it's helpful. And we're turning our ribs and we're turning our shoulders towards this bent front leg. Hand can come to rest on the front thigh. Can we let the back arm be relaxed? Because then the back shoulder can be relaxed. And at the same time as we exhale, we're trying to encourage this back shoulder to move back a little bit more. Good. Then can you feel upright here? So can you feel that your spine is growing upright? You're not leaning forwards, that's nice. You're feeling wide in the front of your chest. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Good. And then from here, again, we'll untwist. We'll fold forwards over our front leg, tuck the toes under in the back leg and start to sort of step that back knee back behind us so that we find this stretch through the front of the back leg thigh. So on into our lunge and having a few breaths in lunge. And seeing how that feels. So up until this point, we've done a lot of forward bends, lengthening through the back of the body. In lunge, we're starting to open through the front of the body and seeing how that feels. And if you've been walking a lot this weekend or cycling or running, then it's likely to feel tighter. Another breath or two. And then we can ease back out of it, untucking our back toes, keeping our chest close to our thigh, rocking our weight back, looking back behind us. And then we're going to see again, how does it feel to come back into another dog pose? So you can come back onto hands and knees, plant both hands on the floor. Wide apart hands if that was helpful. It looked really nice, the last dog pose. Tucking the toes under. Rocking your hips back and up into dog. And again, just, yeah, when you arrive in dog, how does it feel? What do you, yeah, what do you notice? What presents itself to you in your body? How do your feet feel on the floor? Can you work into your feet by coming up onto the ball of one foot and then the other? So that means you have to bend your knees to do that. And you could also do the one where you roll onto the top of one foot and then the other. So sort of roll through the top of the toes. Yes, and work your feet in that way. Very nice. Good. And just before you come out of this dog, you just might give yourself a couple of sort of quiet breaths in dog pose, if that's possible. If your shoulders and arms have had enough, then do come down. But the more times we come in and out of dog, the more possibility is to be quiet in dog. Now, come either into, when you come out of dog, come either into up kneeling, so you can shake your hands out, or sit down over your heels. So whichever is better for you, either up on your knees or sitting down on your heels so you can shake your hands out. And you can also do this one, okay? Because we're going to work a little bit with plank pose now. So in between plank pose, we need to be able to, just take the weight off our hands and shake our wrists out. So let's see, first of all, how it feels to come into just a normal plank. So you come towards the front of your mat, so you've got enough room to lengthen your legs out behind you. So we're trying to keep our shoulders over our wrists. We want to make sure our hands are shoulder width apart, so possibly not as wide as you had them for dog. Lengthening one leg back, lengthening, adding the other leg in. How does it feel to be in plank? And in plank pose, remember, you're really stretching your heels back behind you. So you're resting down through the bones of your arms. You're stretching your heels back behind you. You're looking down at the floor, somewhere just ahead of your fingertips. And you're maybe noticing that it's not so easy to breathe deeply here. And do come down when you need to. Okay, so that's plank pose number one. Come down, sit back over your heels, either down or up, give your hands a shake out. So next off, we'll come into plank pose and then take it into dog pose and see how that feels. A bit of this one if you need to. So, so this time plank pose and then into dog. So what we can do in this one is we're sort of contrasting this feeling. So in plank pose, our body is in a long straight line. We're trying to resist the pull of gravity that wants to take our pelvis to the ground. And we're also not trying to stick our bottom up like in dog. But when we move into dog, that's exactly what we do. We stick our bottom up towards the ceiling, send our hips back. So if you move from dog, plank into dog, it might feel quite a long dog. You might quite like that, or you might want to step your feet in until you find a dog pose that feels good. And then let yourself have a couple of breaths in dog. Or more if you like. So again, that's very nice. So we keep coming back to dog pose because perhaps we then find that possibility of being able to be there with it feeling maybe less effortful. Good. Do come down when you're ready. So there's one further if you wanted to. So come down, give your hands a shake out, either in sitting down or sitting up, kneeling. Bring the backs of your hands together. Now, I was umming and ahhing about whether to sort of put this next one in, but I thought it's optional. And actually, so it's basically, it's side plank. If you do this version of side plank where you roll and you keep one foot stepped in front of the other on the floor, it is a little bit easier. You can slide one foot on top of the other. So if you don't want to do this, don't. And if you've got, you obviously have to do both sides, so you can come down. If you've got a bad shoulder, so if that's not for you, just do another normal plank pose. But if you would like to try your side plank, then Yes, you can. So obviously we move from plank into side plank. So the easier version with the feet is where we roll. So we've got one foot stepped in front of the other one on the floor. And then we let our arm come up. And if you want to then try taking your foot on top of the other foot, you can do. Good. Very nice. And you might want to come down, or you might want to go straight on to side two. I was just saying, if you've stayed on side one a little while, that's fantastic, Nigel. Well done. Very nice. Good. Yes, obviously doing both, yes, and shaking the arms out, Elaine's a good idea. So yes, obviously doing both sides of side plank unless you've got a particular shoulder injury on one side. That's nice. Yeah. So I just thought, again, it's the sort of thing, isn't it? The very, yeah, wonderful plank, Elaine, lovely. It's the sort of end of the winter. Maybe we're feeling a little bit out of shape. I know that I am. So if we feel like, yes, so do the other side of plank, side plank if you're going to, and then I'm sure I should have a little, there should have been a little bit of being quiet and child pose, but well done, you've decided to do that yourselves. So yes, just when you've done both sides of side plank, a few quiet breaths, kneeling or child pose. We're going to do one more dog pose. So we're going to do one more dog pose, and this would be the chance if you want to. So again, if you need to bring the backs of your hands together, if you want to, this would be the dog in which you can do your one-legged dogs. We were going to do dog pose, walk into a forward bend, and then down through a squat, or back into dog if squatting is not for you. So see how it feels. See how it feels to come into your dog. And once you're in your dog pose, just, yeah, if you feel drawn to doing your one-leg dogs, you can do. If you feel drawn to being in a sort of quiet dog, you can do that. It might be that we enjoy the sort of benefits of having done a few dog poses and actually want to be quiet here. If we're feeling a little bit lively and want to explore taking one of our legs up in dog, we can do that. Remember, I think we know all the different things we can do once we've taken our leg up. We can roll our pelvis, we can keep our pelvis level, we can bend our top knee, our raised leg knee. And whenever you've had enough time in dog, it's fine, you can stay longer in dog, particularly if you're lifting your legs. But whenever you've had enough time in dog, you're going to walk your hands in towards your feet. And you're going to come into one last forward bend and see how that forward bend feels now. So let your head go, let your arms go. Feel all of your weight in your feet. And you can come back to checking your toes out. So sort of moving your big toes away from their neighbours, moving the little toes away from their neighbours, just trying to spread your toes out a little bit. And then from your forward bend, you're going to come down to the floor, either through a squat or by walking back into dog pose and coming onto hands and knees. So you just decide what you want to do. So you can come down through a squat, or you can walk back into dog pose, come down onto hands and knees. And if you've come down, yes, if you've come down through a squat, you're going to roll through the tops of your feet onto hands and knees. So we all end up on hands and knees, but in fact, we're not doing anything more on hands and knees. We're coming to lean back on our arms and take our legs long and wide. So we've done quite a lot now, sort of for the shoulders. So we're going to come and do work around the pelvis into the hip joints. So just, yeah, let your legs be long and wide. Lean back onto your hands. You could give your legs a little bit of a roll. You could, what was I going to say? Stretch into your heels. That's the one. That's with my leg cramp. So do that. And then from here, can you bring your feet into cobbler pose by sliding them in without using your hands? So see what's possible there. That's it. Good. And come to sit with your feet in cobbler pose. And from cobbler pose, we're going to move on into pinwheel, which I don't think we've done for a few weeks on a Monday. So let one knee come on top of the other, slide your top leg back, and come into a little bit of circling here. And just, yeah, seeing how this feels through the hip joints. And in a moment, we're going to have a few breaths in our pinwheel forward bend, and then we're going to work on our sort of our pinwheel twist and our sort of opening through the front of the body movement. So if you turn towards this knee that's going out to the side and let yourself fold over that leg and see how that feels for 2 or 3 cycles of breath. Feel how in this pinwheel forward bend, our weight has very much come into this leg that's going out to the side, and that's going to carry on into the next movements we do. So from pinwheel, then walk your hands in towards you. And then come to lean on your arm. So this knee that we folded over, come to lean onto that hand and arm. And then we start these little sort of twisting movements where we're turning towards that arm. We're swinging, that's it, we're swinging our hand out. That's it. So we're thinking about turning towards this leg. It's fine to turn back the other way. And you can feel how, as you do so, maybe your weight comes towards the back leg. And then start to let your hand slap onto the back of your shoulder. And then we're going to do this movement where we open through the front of our body. So if our hand stays on the back of our shoulder, we lean into our other arm, we let our pelvis come up, and then we can take our top arm up towards the ceiling. And then we come all the way back down. So hand back onto the shoulder, very nice, come all the way down. So we'll do this 3 times. So the arm comes round onto the back of the shoulder. We sink down into our supporting arm. We let our pelvis come up, and then we open the front of our body, reaching up, following our fingertips with our gaze, and come back down again. So this is just this movement where hopefully we feel sort of quite free and open through the front of our body. Again, it's sort of, I think counteracts a lot of these sort of winter huddling movements. Good. When you've come down from your 3rd time, you might just, for a breath or so, want to fold back over your bent front leg. And then we'll move on to side 2. So to move on to side 2, you can walk your hands back in towards you. Slide your back leg on top of the leg that we were folding over. Open your legs out in cobbler pose. And then move straight on to side 2 of pinwheel. So slide your top leg back. And come to a little bit of circling here. Circling, settling, see how it feels. Good. And so again, we'll do exactly the same thing on this side. We'll have a couple of breaths in our pinwheel forward bend. We'll then move on into those sort of twisting and opening through the front of the body movements. Obviously, you know what we're doing on this side. So let yourself settle in your pinwheel forward bend for a couple of breaths and just see how it feels. This may feel a sort of quiet place to be for you, or if it may feel a bit more challenging through the hips. And then walk the hands back in and come into this position where you're leaning, so the knee we folded over, you're leaning onto that arm. And so all of your weight is coming into this leg. And then we start to swing our arm. We're doing this sort of turning movement towards our supporting arm, but we can also turn towards the leg behind us. And we're trying to feel that as we turn towards our supporting arm, that our pelvis is coming with us. Yeah, we're not trying to stay heavy below the waist, which we might do in some twists. This hand can now, that's it, slap onto the shoulder. Good. And then, whenever you're ready, hand stays on the shoulder, sink into your supporting arm. Lifting your pelvis, reaching up to the ceiling, opening through the front of your body and then coming back down. So this is a movement, but it's also this opening place. We can come back down, we can repeat that, hand onto the shoulder, sink into the supporting arm. Open through the front of the body. How does it feel? Come back down again. Do it once more. If you're really, really keen on it, you can do it twice more, of course. So once or twice more. Opening through the front of the body. Good. So yes, once more if you like, and then yeah, it looks really nice. Well done. And then you can fold down into your forward bend for a couple of breaths. Good. Just have, that's it, a couple of quiet breaths in your pinwheel forward bend. And then walking your hands in towards you. Come back up into pinwheel and then just lean back on your arms and take your legs long and wide again. So you're pleased to hear that. We're going to get to lie down now because we didn't lie down at the beginning. We did a bit more lying down now. We're going to be doing some twisty things. I'm just looking at my thing. We're going to be doing some twisty things on our backs and sides. So it might be that you want to have a cushion to go under the side of your head. So you could get one to hand. If you like sitting with your legs long and wide, you could give yourself a few more breaths here. Otherwise, you can lie down onto your backs to start with. And you can put socks on now if you want to. We're not going to sleep, but we're going to see how it feels to lie down. And yeah, so just let yourself arrive on your back whenever you're ready. And there's probably something, you know, we've moved a lot. It's quite enjoyable. Maybe it's always enjoyable to lie down. So onto your back, lie however you like. Just in my book it says arrive, so that means arrive on your back and breathe. So feel the movement of your breath through your body. And you can bring your attention to the back of your head. And then often, as we do at the beginning of class, start to let your head roll to the right and to the left. Just letting the head roll from side to side, feeling the contact of the back of your head on the ground. And a couple more times, rolling your head to the right and to the left. And then from doing so, finding a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the ground. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then if your legs are long, bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor. Have your feet a little distance apart and start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So again, something we often do right at the beginning of class. Lying on our backs, letting our knees tilt from side to side. Finding a rhythm, finding a movement that feels comfortable, that feels enjoyable to you right now. You don't have to push yourself. Obviously, if your body feels quite easy, then it might be a bigger movement. And just a couple more times. Good. And then pause in the centre and lengthen both legs out on the floor. And give your legs a bit of a roll, bounce your knees, whatever helps you, just to lie heavy and long. Feel the length of yourself from your heels to the back of your head. Good. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then bending your knees again, standing your feet on the floor. And this time crossing your arms over your chest. So now you're going to rock and let your knees and your elbows and your head all rock to the right and all rock to the left. That's it. So it's more that we're rocking side to side across the back of our body. So we've got our arms crossed over our chest, arms crossed over our chest, knees bent. We're rolling towards the right side of our body and then the left side of our body. And what we're going to do from this is we're going to roll all the way over onto one side, and we're going to do a bit of a twist on our side so that you can choose which side you go to. And when you arrive on your side, this is when you might want your cushion under the side of your head, because you want to have your arms don't need to be sort of hugged around you. Your arms just sort of relaxed in front of you. So settle on your side. You've got your knees bent and at a right angle to your body. So some of you might need to bring your knees up a little bit. That's it. So that's it, Aditi, good. Bring your knees up a little bit and slide your feet out. Good. So you feel nice and settled and stable on your side. And we're going to do that movement where we're on our side, and then we start to roll from the side of our head towards the back of our head, and we let our top arm follow. So we're trying to keep the top arm sort of relaxed. Yeah, I would slide, and Aditi, particularly for you with your shoulders, I would slide your top arm across your bottom arm and across your body rather than lifting it up into the air. So you're trying to keep the top arm following what's going on in the head and the shoulders rather than leading. Because I think so often we tend to lead, do a lot with our arms. And now we're trying to let the arms sort of follow the movements of the head and the shoulders. Good. That's it. And just keep that top arm really relaxed so it slides across your body. And it's up to you. You can rock in and out of this a few times, or you can stay. And as I can see, actually, Aditi, I think your feet need to move a little bit further forwards on the, that's it. Yeah, that's good. That's it, Sheila, yes. Now, do let your top knee slide on your bottom knee or even lift up towards the ceiling. Yeah, that's great, Elaine. So that your top shoulder can come and rest on the floor behind you. And you might want to then stay there for a few breaths with your top shoulder resting on the floor behind you, your arm relaxed on the floor behind you. Or you can move in and out of this. Yes, obviously furniture permitting, because this takes a surprising amount of space, this one. That's it. Good. So let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. Yes, I'm not sure what you can do about that hand, that ET. Maybe just rest it on the sofa, or you could, I mean, that arm can be on the floor with the elbow bent, so it might be that you can slide your hand under your sofa if you prefer. Yes, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Just, yeah, maybe it's better. I don't know. Yeah, or it can even be down by your side. That's fine. It doesn't have to be. Yeah, that might be better. Good. Okay. From here, use your top knee coming up towards the ceiling to help you come all the way back onto your back. So if you start lifting your top knee up to the ceiling, yes, you could keep, that's it. You could keep your arm, yeah, Sheila, you might keep your arm back where it was actually. So if you let your arm come back there and let your top knee lift towards the ceiling, that should just quite easily bring you back onto your back. That's it, good. So just settle on your back for a couple of cycles of breath. And then we will move on to the second side. And obviously, as you can see, it's sort of worth taking the time in this one to settle yourself comfortably on your side and to make sure you've got the space you need for your arms. It just makes me think back to doing this in my front room, and yeah, different days. So when you're ready, come to settle yourself on side 2. With your cushion under the side of your head and your knees bent at a right angle to your body. So usually we probably have our knees too low down and they maybe need to come up a little bit higher. Yeah, that's nice, Sheila. That looks good. And the feet, that's it. The feet are beneath the knees. And then let yourself have a breath or two on your side before you start to move. Aditi, I'm not sure if it's just the angle I'm at, but it looks like when you start to roll back that you're going to end up on Nigel's feet, but you might be fine. It just might be the angle of the Zoom. So Nigel, I was actually going to suggest your wife move down her mat, but that's very generous of you to move. That's it. Good. Yeah, well done setting yourself down. And then when you're ready, just think about that movement. You're rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head. How does your top shoulder need to respond? How can your top arm respond? But that beautiful, Aditi, it's really wonderful with the arm on that side. How can your top arm respond, but really being very passive? That's so nice, lovely. And exactly, I would move in and out of this a few times. And letting the head roll on the floor. And it might be, if you're using a cushion, you might find that when you roll towards the back of your head, that you're less in need of the cushion and you might want to get rid of it, particularly if you're staying on your back, but that's up to you. Good, yes, really lovely, soft, fluid movements. Well done, everyone. And so in this movement, what we're really encouraging is this sort of softening of the shoulders and the arms. That's it. If we're staying and breathing with our top shoulder resting on the floor behind us, of course, make sure if it's helpful, your knee lifts or slides on your bottom leg. And then there's that feeling, if we're breathing in the twist, of being wide across the front of our chest. So particularly feeling the width of the inhalation there. And as we exhale, just really letting the arms rest, the shoulders rest on the floor. Looks great, everyone. Lovely. So you can have another breath or two on this side. And then we will make our way onto our backs and we'll finish with a little bit of breathing on our back. But there's no rush. If it's nice to be in the twist, then stay there. And when you come onto your back, make sure you're going to be warm because, you know, as we all know, it's not very easy to focus on our breathing if, in fact, what we're focusing on is feeling ever so slightly cold. So I thought we would finish by focusing on our breathing, just in a few different parts of the front of our body. So this is going to be familiar, but I don't think we've done it for a little while. So you can lie with your knees bent or your legs long. And you're going to start with bringing your hands quite low onto your belly, so beneath your belly button. Right down to the sort of this lower part of the abdomen. And it might be, you just, you know, how does it feel resting your hands low on your belly? You might feel the belly moves here a lot as you let your breath come in and out. You might not, it's fine. We've also just got that sort of nice, comforting feeling of the hands resting on the front of the body. Be quite soothing. Letting the weight come in, letting the weight leave us. The breath, sorry. Just having your awareness in this part of the body, the lower belly. For another cycle or two of breath. And then from here, you're going to let your hands slide up and out a little bit. So your hands come onto your bottom ribs. And it's quite nice to have the hands sort of out to the side a little bit. And then just settling with your breathing in this part of your body. And again, it might be that you notice a lot of movement of these low ribs as you breathe. It might be that you don't notice so much movement. Whatever you feel is fine. So settle with your hands on your low ribs and just bringing your attention to your breath. What do you notice with your hands on this part of your body? And sometimes here, if we allow our breath to become a little bit longer without forcing it, so that feeling as the breath comes in, we just give it plenty of time and space to travel deep within us. And as the breath leaves, we allow it to leave slowly, slowly, emptying us completely. So have another cycle or two of breath here. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And then the last place we're going to bring our hands is right to the top of the rib cage, just beneath the collarbones. And you want to probably have your elbows resting on the floor here. So hands right towards the top of the rib cage. And how does it feel to become aware of your breathing with the hands resting on this upper part of your chest? I often find this can be a really sort of nice, in a way, light, floaty breath. We can also feel wide to the sort of outer corners of the rib cage towards the shoulders as the breath comes in. As the breath leaves us, the ribs maybe fall back and soften a little bit. And then with the next exhalation, maybe we feel the chest rising, widening a little. But again, whatever you feel is absolutely fine and is right for you just now. So let yourself have another cycle or two of breath with your hands on the upper part of your chest. And then just maybe if we've got another minute or so, and you can either let your arms now come to rest out by your sides, or you can take them anywhere you like on the front of your body. Just let yourself carry on resting, feeling your breath flowing in and out until you hear the sound of the singing bowl 3 times. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.